Feeling the solidness of the body in your seat. And noticing any input through the senses of touch, taste, smell. Notice any sounds coming through the ears. Any inner sight or visual if the eyes are open. And then allowing our awareness to open from the limited perception of body and senses to the expanded, infinite sense of being, the sense of alive presence that is not limited to this body, but permeates this body. It is the expanded field where we all meet as one. And noticing that in this field there is no preference, there is no craving, there is no aversion, there is no sense of individual separateness. In this field it is all inclusive. Permeating and vibrating as life itself, expressing through all the magnificence. And we can hold this awareness of this expanded field of aliveness or ground of being, and also be aware of the localized physicality of the body, our vehicle. Without the identification solely with this body, but with this expanded field. We are ever open, infinite potential. But localizing back into this physical frame now. While maintaining that wonderful sense of expansion. Taking a deep breath in and out. And we meet here for satsang. And as we meet here, let us leave our history outside this meeting. Leave it at the door. Leave our personal identification at the door. Let us leave our desires and our cravings and our attachments at the door. And as we come together here now, let us come together empty, open, with a delicate sense of awareness, open to the presence and indeed the gifts of this moment together. Noticing the field of alive presence that is here with us now. And anything else that is arising in the moment. The only reality that we know is this moment, right now. And the alive presence that we are imbibed with in this moment is life. And whatever is coming in, whether that's a telephone ringing or a bird singing in the garden or a knock at the door, this is our reality. This is the presence that is demanding our attention now. Can we meet this moment fresh, alive as awareness? Empty to receive the fullness of this moment. For this is all we are ever asked to do. And sometimes this moment demands action, which will, if we are open and alive and present, will occur. But there's no need to control, to know what is coming next. An openness to the alive presence on the leading edge of creation, which is always now. That's it. That's all we're asked. To be here now. Alive and open. Empty, yet in that emptiness, full. So with this in our hearts, we can be fully alive and present here together in Satsang. Meeting the moment and whatever arises now. So if something is arising for you in this moment, something that feels like it needs to be spoken or shared, allow that to come through, fresh, clean, and free.
Hello, everybody. I take you can hear me. I find it really interesting that whenever I try to slow down, or have a quiet period in life, or just, to be just still, during those times, I seem to get busier, seem to get more and more active. I'm not saying the activity is stressing me out or anything like that. It seems like something just takes over and you just have more things to do and get more done. But the more trying to be still, the more I seem to get active. I don't know. It's a contradiction in my mind. So I wonder if there's any kind of light you can shed on that, Soraya. Just to understand it. I'm not worried about it, but I just find it very intriguing how that seems to happen.
Well, it can be, there's two ways that we could look at that, Ish. One is if the mind finds it hard to be still or for the body to be still, then when a desire arises to have more stillness, then a restlessness can then come up and even unconsciously create more activity. So that's one thing it could be. But also, we don't know what is best, whether action or stillness is better at any given time. However, if action is simply asked of us and things are organically placed before us or arise to be dealt with, and we deal with them and still feel a sense of stillness and peace while dealing with what needs to be done, or perhaps, there's a knock at the door and someone needs attention or something, then that is simply meeting the moment. And sometimes that moment brings activity, and sometimes that moment brings more stillness. So we have to be a little careful, because sometimes the mind can self-sabotage. It's sneaky, very sneaky, I want to be still, might turn into, oh, but this, you know, I've got this to do and that to do, and suddenly activity takes over and the stillness actually doesn't happen. But there's no reason that we can't be active while holding an inner stillness. I spent today working really hard physically in the garden, moving rocks and creating a whole new meditative sitting area in one of our gardens. And I felt so calm and still and at peace. There was absolutely nothing going on in my mind, but yet the body was quite physically active doing that. But there was such a sense of grace and peace with it. So activity doesn't always mean disturbance or ripples or wrestling. And stillness doesn't always mean peace, because many people sit thinking, I really should meditate. I really should sit here and you know, and go into this Zen experience. And their mind is actually incredibly active and disturbed.
Yes, so it seems that just be at one, doing or without activity as well, seems to be the something that's coming through, I guess, for me there. Then thank you so much. Yeah.
It's really just as I spoke about earlier, being empty and meeting the moment, and whatever's arising for us in that moment, knowing deep down that that is perfect. And sometimes that is something that requires action. Sometimes that's something that requires mental activity, you know, like sending an email and getting the links right. and whatever that is. But if we can do that in a state of openness and presence and peace, then sometimes that has, you know, it is more stillness than sitting for meditation with an agitated mind, thinking I really should do this. With this global pandemic at the moment, it's quite interesting that, you know, we're experiencing this on a global level. Very often an activity is happening in one country or another country, or perhaps just in your family, or just with an individual experience. But interestingly, at this time, this is a global experience where on some level, all of humanity is experiencing a wake-up call in the form of what we've named COVID-19. And that wake-up call can mean and be interpreted differently in different countries, in different individuals, etc. But it is global, and perhaps for the first time, something apart from the world wars that is affecting every human on the planet. So there is a stirring of the global vibration in humanity. And last night, Terry and I watched the David Attenborough movie on Netflix. I think he called it My Mission Statement or My Statement. And it's profoundly moving. And I hope that everybody gets to see that and watch that as well. Because climate changing and the lessening of wild creatures and wild land on this planet is changing at an astronomical rate, and it's going down, not up. And again, this is something that's affecting everybody globally and going forward. And of course, we're condensing now out of the ground of being into the solid experience of humanity on this wonderful planet Earth. And I see the perfection in this as well. You know, there is a divine intelligence here, and there is a human intelligence. And the human mind is such that it's never satisfied. It's ever wanting more. And that's, you know, the kleshas, the yoga kleshas, and the Buddhist philosophy speaks about the kleshas as well. The craving, the aversion, the attachment to myself as this separate individual with a separate body and a separate life and a separate mission in life. And the divine orchestration here is that beautiful web of life, the ground of being that permeates all things, and the divine networking that creates harmony and balance there between everything and with everything. So this has always been the struggle between the small mind of man that craves control and identifies as a separate entity, and the awareness that is expanded and the beautiful natural matrix that creates flow and integration and balance between all things as one thing. And as that pulses and expands and is in harmony, everything is in balance. But then we have this separate individual mind of man that wants to control something that's far beyond the little separate mind of man. So we're watching this play out at the moment, where the earth and the harmonization of awareness is calling for balance and always doing its best. Consciousness is always doing its best through nature to maintain balance. And then humanity is wanting to own and possess and control and, you know, creating these ripples and violent uprisings. I'm just going to unmute Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah. Oh,
yeah, it's okay. I've just unmuted my. I got a lovely. There's something about what you're saying about this global experience that we're all going through. it's beginning, it's sort of making us as the individuals really, you know, open to something that is about the connectedness of all of us all. And I am reminded of the fact that, you know, you watch David Attenborough's made that program that he couldn't have made a year or two ago. He couldn't be saying those things a year or two ago because we weren't, or the humanity, the global sort of, you know, community wasn't ready to hear it. And I was sorting out, clearing up some of Polly Higgins' affairs and her paperwork, and I came across a letter, a beautiful handwritten letter from David Attenborough, which he only wrote a year and a half ago, encouraging Polly. It was just before, it was about 2 months, but so she hadn't had a diagnosis yet, but just 2 months before she died, encouraging her, saying, you know, you need to carry on this work, it's wonderful, but I can't come out and publicly support it. And a year and a half later, he's making a program like he is. And that, for me, is just amazing, because it's just like, you know, how far have we traveled that we can now hear this message that he's making? And of course, that even that's just it's just a wisp of something across the arc of time.
Yeah, it is indeed. Oops. It is indeed, Sarah. And I was thinking of Polly Higgins and Ecocide. For anyone who hasn't listened to my podcast with the Ecocide group that have taken up Polly's cause to create a law called Ecocide, which is crimes against the ecology, crimes against nature, basically. And she was a lawyer who initiated this, and sadly, very late in her illness, was diagnosed with lung cancer, I think it was, wasn't it? And passed away within months, but not before she set this whole motion towards creating a law called Ecocide, so that crimes against our nature, our natural world, would be held accountable for. So yes, I was thinking about her, and as I was watching that last night, and it's just so fascinating to see the weaving of how things arise. And then Polly came in, she set that in motion, and then she left, you know, and now other people are carrying that on. And David Attenborough, because he is a global figure, someone who everybody recognizes and respects, and he can now come out and speak as he's speaking at 93 with such incredible clarity, which is wonderful. But again, that's just another, you know, in the moment, that is perfect, and then that moment passes. And I just see that it's all this divine weaving that's, you know, leading wherever it's going to lead. But it's so fascinating to watch it unfold and to feel the calling. You know, Sarah, you felt that calling to work with the Ecocide group. That's been a calling for you. For me, it's been a calling to do the teaching that I'm teaching and set up this satsang with just the few of us that are here, but this is still just as precious a little diamond as anything else. And others of you here are called in different ways to play our part in this incredible weaving. So just to be as open as we can be and present as we can be to this unfolding moment, only needing to offer what is being asked for of us in any given moment. Would anyone else like to share? Go ahead, Ish.
It's to do with a global issue, really. Slightly different to what you've just been talking about, David, and that. Maybe similar, but there's been a lot of fear. There's a lot of people afraid of the virus, the controls from government, vaccinations or not, etc., etc. And I just feel there's nothing to really be worried or fearful about, because whatever's going on, it can't affect us. You know, we're not, you know, we're just a body mind, which can't affect us, as it were. It can't affect the eye or beyond the eye. So all this is playing out, whether it's that or whether it's peace or war, it's all the same, really. It's only awareness of our mind that's creating that, and there's nothing to really be fearful to take us out away from our inner space. Yeah, I think that's a message for Girish, actually. I must talk to you about that at some point. That's my feeling on this global issue. Whatever it is, it's for the better. There's nothing to be afraid of, to be honest.
Yes, very true. It can also be a nice little reminder, if we do have fear coming up, to look at that fear and to see that I am not that fear. And always come back to, who am I? And once we rest in that I am presence, that ground of being, that is also expressing through this physicality to the only reality that we know here on earth, which is experienced through this conduit. But within this is the one ground of being. And if we remain in touch with that, then there is always peace here. It doesn't mean it will always be easy. It doesn't mean it will always be comfortable. It doesn't mean that there will be no pain. There will be all of that. There'll be discomfort. There'll be physical pain. There'll be challenge. There'll be movement sometimes and stillness at other times. But again, we only have to meet the arising moment. And when we know who and what we truly are, and that there is this one stream and flow of life here, this does allow such a deep and expanded place of peace. Yet we cannot deny the physicality and the experience of life as here, called a Soraya, with the flavor of Sorayaness. There's a character here that is unique to Soraya, or there's a character there that's unique to Sarah or Sebastian or Terry or Ish or Colette. And in that expression, there is also a weaving. But that ground of being that connects us all as one, that divine radio, is always and ever available. And in that, there is no deep suffering. Once we rest in that, we can enjoy the dance Sometimes that'll be comfortable, sometimes that's uncomfortable. But if we can meet the moment, knowing that every challenge that arises is another opportunity to rest back into the truth of I am presence, then this is a great gift. It's a great gift. And it doesn't mean that we are apathetic. There still a passion will arise, perhaps to save a koala in a bushfire or work for a particular cause. All those things will occur anyway, naturally, because the individual separate character with the patterns there would not be able to do anything else. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. But yet this human mind is always trying to make something wrong. And because it's basically, the human mind is a control freak. And when it can't control it, fear arises. But if we can see that and shine the light of awareness on that, sit as awareness watching that, then ultimately it will dissolve and fade and arise less and less and less. And when it arises, that's okay. There's no judgment in that. Here comes the old fear again. Uh-oh, can't control that. Yeah, there's a little bit of fear there, but we'll just watch that rise and watch it fall and know that I am not that. Sometimes that's easy and sometimes that's really hard. But it's all okay. It's that great okayness we talk about.
I have nothing really to share, except to say how lovely it is to be here and to be just in agreement with everything that is being said, and just appreciation and joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Master Terry, go ahead.
Yes, I was listening to David Attenborough speaking last night about allowing the diversity to to come back into nature. And human nature is a similar thing, because as Soraya was saying just now, we all have this unique viewpoint of the same world. And this uniqueness is that diversity in human nature, just as in nature we have the diversity of enormous diversity of the way nature explores color and shape and size. It's incredible. And in each of us, we all have that opportunity to share that unique point of view. So, I mean, for example, when I play the flute, I'm expressing my point of view, really, or the way I feel, the way I see things. And we need to stop struggling to achieve that, because it's a relaxing back into being natural, a kind of effortless being. And I say effortless because I'm not saying that the road to now is not fraught with all kinds of toing and froing. I mean, the thing that seems to get in the way as we grow or move through life is the repetition of patterns. I think if anyone's read Eckhart Tolle, he calls this the pain body. And the pain body are all the stored up, incomplete experiences that are locked in. And it develops a mind of its own because it keeps arising, wanting to feed on suffering. And I can speak very clearly from personal experience. For many, many years, this pain body would arise from time to time, quite regularly, and it would take me over. It would grab hold, and the consciousness would just disappear into this pain. And this is not our fault. It's just history repeating. It's just the natural effort to escape from fear and danger and all that sort of stuff. And I personally think that it can be built into our early education. And maybe it will one day, to be open to things that frighten us, you know, because if we're all struggling to reach our own authenticity, you know, we're trying to be like everybody else because we look at somebody and say, well, wow, he's really authentic, or she's really got it. That, you know, I want to be like that. We don't realize we're just as special here. There is a unique point of view here that's already seeing, but not realizing how to share that, or how to express that, how to be that. And in my own experience, it happened for me a kind of slowing down of this, the arising of this pain body slowed. It stopped happening so often, and eventually just lay down and gave up, I suppose. It's hard to relate to it now, but I just want to say that it's all about saying yes to whatever happens, because if we stop building up residual pain or resistance, we can burn it up. It burns. If we say, okay, I'm going to have it all. I'm going to have it. There's no other way through. And I found that actually nothing happened. When I opened up to it, nothing. There was nothing to be afraid of, just as Ish was saying, that there is nothing to be afraid of. It's the fear itself that perpetuates itself. That enormous resistance to what's happening. And the gift is constantly being offered. This is the way forward. This is your authentic path. There can be no other way but this. And it's so simple. It cannot really be talked about. using words, although we try very hard here. It's like a eternal paradox. You say one thing and the opposite comes in, because what we're talking about is straddling the extremes, you know, is walking that fine line between ups and downs. Because of course, you know, in all that suffering, there's plenty of ups. They always have the downs. Have you noticed? They always the swings and the roundabouts. But there is a central pivot, which is where consciousness just lies in balance. That's not to say that all the emotional stuff doesn't keep happening. You know, I still have intense feelings. I express myself with words. I express myself with music. It's just like in nature. Everything has to put up with everything. And in the human nature as well. So roll on diversity in human nature, because we need every angle on things, just as there is every angle on things. There are 8 billion angles on things. That's us. And we've all got a perfectly unique view of this beautiful world. And there's no need to try to be anything else. There just isn't. We're perfect, absolutely perfect. Every single one is perfect. So, nothing to do. Nothing to do.
Thank you, Terry. Yes, indeed. It's so interesting, though, the most common statement that I hear when I work with people in individual sessions is how can I love myself? And it's that inner critic, which of course is the mind, that is always resisting their unique angle on things and making it wrong. If only we could, each and every one of us, realize that diversity and that unique angle that each of us has into the one thing, into the, you know, this beautiful underlying connectedness, the ground of being, that each angle is perfect and necessary to make up the whole. And that we could not possibly be anything other than what we are. Again, it all sounds so simple. And actually, it really is. The human mind just wants to complicate things. So we call it, in yoga, we call it the middle path, which is exactly what Terry was saying. If you imagine the seesaw, the up and the down ends of the seesaw. And the middle fulcrum, that middle path, is where it all happens. It's in the point of creation. It is in the point of the moment. That leading edge of creation where all exists at that point. In the middle path, there is balance, harmony, awareness of the ups and downs on either side, but always centered in the heart with love. So we might see you all again next week. Thank you for sharing your beauty and your unique views. Much, much love to each and every one of you. Namaste.